Greetings and welcome to the channel. I'm Richard Cole. This is Amari Music Talk, and today I want to talk about one of the greatest guitarists that, in the world of funk gets a lot of recognition, but maybe to the world at large, maybe not so much. So I want to use this show to spotlight Parliament Funkadelic's greatest, or one of the greatest guitarists, Eddie Hazel. In my opinion, I think that Eddie Hazel is the absolute heir apparent to Jimi Hendrix. Both of those guitarists, both Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Hazel, have been one of the major influences on one of my favorite bands, The Time. The guitarist Jesse Johnson, huge influence on his guitar playing, and of course, I rated The Time as my #1 favorite funk band of the 80s. They're also my favorite band, period. But, or I should say, my favorite band of my generation. But definitely, let's get back to Eddie Hazel. Again, phenomenal guitar player, much in a similar vein of Hendrix. He has played Fender Strats just like Hendrix, but he's also been known to play Gibbons guitars, Marshall amps, the fuzz tones, the Music Man HD3 amplifier. The list just goes on about a lot of the tech, or a lot of the same accessories or similar accessories that Jimi Hendrix has used in his, guitar innovations as well. But to get to Eddie Hazel's work on not just Parliament Funkadelic, I'll get to some other recordings in a minute, but the one that definitely is most beloved by Parliament Funkadelic fans is Maggot Brain, the title track of that great album from 1971. And that is a 10-minute guitar solo. The story behind that is that George Clinton told Eddie, look, this track, play it as if you lost your mom. And the emotion that is played in those 10 minutes, to me, this is, it's like, how Led Zeppelin fans talk about Stairway to Heaven. That's how we as Parliament Funkadelic fans feel about Maggot Brain. It's just a phenomenal solo. But I mean, his guitar work doesn't stop there. One of my favorite early Funkadelic albums is Standing on the Verge of Getting It On, and Eddie Hazel is the co-writer of, I think, just about all of the songs on that album. And again, another phenomenal, not just the solos, but just the rhythm parts. Red Hot Mama from the Standing on the Verge of Getting It On album. There's a clip, if you can find it on YouTube, right around, I think maybe P-Funk Earth Tour 77, right around that era, where they do Red Hot Mama live, and it focuses on Eddie, and there's like where they do like an extended jam of it even before they get to the song, and that in itself includes some really great solo work on it. I can't speak enough about how great Eddie Hazel's playing is. Like I said, we talked about Standing on the Verge of Getting It On, but there was a point where, he left, or some of the members of Funkadelic left for a while in kind of like the mid-70s, and ended up playing on a couple of Temptations albums. Let's see, think Song for You is the most notable, where they play on the song Glass House. I forget some of the other tracks on that album. And then I think the one before that, or the two before that, All Directions and 1990, you get an inkling of Eddie Hazel's guitar playing on those tracks as well. And, you know, even though we lost this guitarist way too soon at the age of 42, way back in December of 1992, we're definitely fortunate to have had his guitar skills for a few, couple of decades or a few decades on so many great recordings. Another one of my favorite Eddie Hazel moments is actually his solo album, Game, Dames, and Guitar Things. Now, this is an album that now is very hard to find at a reasonable price, either on CD or even vinyl. Like, I don't have either. I remember actually first hearing this album probably not long after I got my first iPhone, and had downloaded it from iTunes. And I was just blown away how great this album was, because I've heard a lot about it over the years, but again, had never heard it. So I didn't hear it till like maybe 2010, 2011, probably about 2010 is when I first finally got to hear this album. And from the first track, which is a cover of the Mom and Papa's California Dreamin', they kind of P-funk it up a little bit. It kind of has a little reggae feel to it a little bit, but again, it showcases his virtuosity on guitar. There's a lot of soloing underneath that is, again, amazing. So I urge you, it is on streaming. You can find it on streaming. So I definitely urge you to go check that album out and listen to it. Again, it also has some, like I said, it's still a P-Funk production. George Clinton and Bootsy and Bernie, and you got the Brides of Funkenstein that are handling the background vocals. And Eddie's not a bad singer as well. He holds his own on this album. I mean, I love this album to death, and I haven't heard any subsequent solo albums, so I'm going to actually check those out when I get the chance soon. But yeah, definitely Game, Dames, Guitar Things, that album. There's a cover of Bootsy's Physical Love. It's an instrumental version of it. Not bad, but again, like I said, the album really showcases Eddie's guitar playing. And like I said, his singing's not bad either. It's a really great album to listen to. Another favorite moment on that album is a cover of the Beatles' "I Want You, She's So Heavy." It's one of my favorite songs on Abbey Road. But again, Eddie represents big time on this album. And again, it sticks faithfully to the original a little bit, but again, there's that P-Funk slant that, just elevates it to another level. And again, like I said, just, go on streaming, check this album out. It's amazing. Another one of my favorite Eddie Hazel moments, kind of right around One Nation Under Groove, he's pretty much absent. The times that he was absent, this is when they brought in, Michael Hampton, young cat at the time on guitar, and could hold his own. Again, if to me Eddie Hazel is the heir apparent to Jimi Hendrix, then Michael Hampton is definitely the heir apparent to Eddie Hazel. He definitely holds his own. But there are moments where Eddie Hazel does come back, like in Funkadelic's Hardcore Jollies, the track Coming Around the Mountain, that features Eddie's guitar playing. Even later into the 80s, P-Funk All-Stars, Urban Dance Floor Gorillas album, Pumping It Up, again, another one of my favorite P-Funk tracks. The guitar solo in that. Again, by all means, check it out. Like I said, Hendrix, before his untimely death, was going in different directions. You had like the Band of Gypsies, which was kind of branching off into some funkier territory, as opposed to kind of the more psychedelic feel, or the just total rock / blues feel of the Experience. And even though that band didn't really get to its full potential, that kind of later lineup with the Experience with Billy Cox and Mitch Mitchell, those recordings that eventually became other things after Jimi Hendrix passed. I'll do a video on Hendrix another time. But just listen to that style, and like I said, how Eddie Hazel kind of brought some of those influences, and again, these cats came up in a time where you did have the blues greats, or you had a Chuck Berry, but the blues greats like Albert King, B.B. King, Freddie King, the Three Kings, Muddy Waters, bringing those influences into the funk. First with Hendrix, then you have an Eddie Hazel, like I said, the heir apparent. Now there's some other great guitar players too. Ernie Isley, the Isley Brothers. Now the earlier lineup of the Isley Brothers had Jimi Hendrix as the stage guitars for the live acts, and there's a couple of recordings, I think when they were with Motown, that Jimi plays on as well. And depending on who you talk to, either Hendrix showed Ernie how to play, or just Hendrix, by kind of living with the Isley Brothers at the time, just influenced Eddie, Ernie Isley, just to pick up the guitar and play. He could be considered an heir apparent as well. But to me, as far as just the pure, unadulterated funk, especially the directions that Jimi was going to go into, and then with that foundation of the early Westbound label era of Funkadelic, and even beyond, that influence is there. It takes it to the next level. We speak about a lot of guitarists from whatever, whether it's Jimmy Page, whether it's Jeff Beck, or whether it's Eric Clapton, Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai. A lot of those guitarists, Frank Zappa, they get a lot of notoriety. But again, I think somebody like Eddie Hazel deserves to be in that same, category. Rolling Stone at one point ranked him at number 83 in their list of 100 greatest guitarists. To me, that should be even higher. If not top 10, for sure top 20. So I think, again, that's kind of, like I said, where I think Eddie Hazel deserves way more notoriety, way more, attention, more props. You do have Jesse Johnson that has spoken very highly of Eddie Hazel, where, in addition to, again, Jesse Johnson was influenced by a lot of the blues greats, but also too on kind of the rock / funk side, Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Hazel. And like I said, definitely check him out. Like I said, you can get a lot of the Funkadelic, especially the Westbound era, Westbound label era Funkadelic. That material you can still find. It's still in print. Maybe some of the vinyl, depending, you might get lucky and find it. But it's also definitely on streaming. So, by all means, check it out. All right, and that is going to end this episode of Amari excuse me, I keep calling Amari Purple Talk. That's the old show. This is Amari Music Talk. And this one we still cover Prince, but we also cover the funk. You know, we covered Cameo in the last episode, the Style album. Getting ready to do Cameosis next. Like I said, we're going to talk about Jesse Johnson soon. So to stay up to date on all of this, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, because that'll keep the numbers going, beat the algorithms. You'll be up to date on content. Also, become a Patreon supporter. That helps keep the show going. At this point, I lost a light ring. I got to get a new one. You know, I got to upgrade some equipment. So, you know, just like PBS, to kind of keep that content going, get early access to a lot of the videos, and also exclusive content such as the topic of Prince's For You album and how I think that is a perfect 70s indie album. So definitely check that out, and there's, like I said, more content coming. So again, like, subscribe, notification bell, become a Patreon supporter. Also check out some of my music. There'll be a link in the show notes, or if you're on Patreon, you can actually download 2 tracks for free. So by all means, check it out. And until then, create your day, create your life. Peace.